Did you know that the value of the US dollar has lost over 85% of its purchasing power since 1971? A lot of folks understand that prices were a lot cheaper in the past, but they don't stop to think about what that really means. It means you literally cannot save money in dollars. You can only lose money in dollars. But in the next 10 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why owning physical gold and silver is a critical component to both preserving your wealth and prospering during an economic crisis. We'll show you how to leverage your IRA to get maximum results and give you a brief but important history lesson so you finally understand why the system feels like it's set up to steal the savings of hardworking Americans and funnel the profits to the top. At the end of this video, you may be curious on how you can get gold and silver to work for you. And we at American Alternative Assets are here to help you do it in the right way. But in order to know why gold and silver are the solution to inflation-based theft, you need to understand how we got here in the first place. It started in 1933, with the US government refusing to redeem US dollars for gold. Then, in 1971, Nixon announced that the US is leaving the gold standard for good. Before that, the US dollar was backed by gold reserves. Now, the dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the US government. Now, I don't know if you've been paying attention lately, but faith and credit isn't something that this government has done a good job earning. The reality is, the gold standard never left us. The US and the rest of the world simply left the gold standard. But it's still here. Consider this. In the year 1900, you could buy an expensive, high-end men's suit for a $20 bill. $20 was also the price of 1 ounce of gold back then. However, today, the same 1 ounce of gold can buy you a high-end men's suit for $1,930. That's the difference between price and purchasing power. Gold held its purchasing power while the Federal Reserve has used inflation to make their assets rise while the dollar gets devalued. That means that if you own gold or real money, you did just fine. But anyone saving the US dollars actually lost money. It's sad most folks aren't taught in school what money really is and how it works. And they, the financial elite, have designed it this way on purpose. After all, if the people don't understand how the system works, they'll never know they're being taken advantage of. So, to understand how this works and why the dollar doesn't even qualify as money, you need to understand the various properties of money first. The 3 most important criteria for something to be considered as money is that it is 1, a medium of exchange where people are willing and able to exchange it for goods and services. 2, a unit of account, which means that you can measure the market value of goods and services in it. And 3, a store value, which means that it maintains its value over time. Now, since the US dollar has lost 85% of its purchasing power since 1971, it's not a store value. So, can you really consider it money? Obviously not. Gold, on the other hand, has been traded and valued for over 6,000 years by people around the world. It's a medium of exchange, a unit account, and a store value. That makes it money. When currency, the US dollar, was backed by money, gold, it made dollars even more stronger. But in 1933, Roosevelt began leaving the gold standard, and Nixon finalized the process in 1971 because they didn't want to be limited by how many dollars they could spend. When you give powerful people unlimited access to be able to print money out of thin air, well, they do it. It's called inflation. Most people don't realize that inflation doesn't mean that prices are rising. Prices rising are the result of inflation, or printed money. The Fed and the US government intentionally inflate our money supply, which intentionally makes the dollars in your pocket worth less and less every year, while the assets owned by the investor class appear to go up. The simple truth is, inflation is theft. It not only robs you of your purchasing power, it robs you of your time, the most precious asset of all. Because if your savings aren't enough to maintain your lifestyle, it means you have to keep working longer and harder than you should to keep up with the cost of living. Frankly, we believe that inflation like this is borderline criminal, but it's also part of the system, and the system is hard to change. The good news is we don't have to change the system. We simply need the right tools to combat inflation and the erosion of our wealth. There's nothing better and more time-tested than gold and silver. Gold, as you've seen, maintains its purchasing power over time and in the face of runaway inflation. Because no matter how hard they try, you can't just mine as much gold as you want. And although it's been a good idea to have some gold and silver in your portfolio, we find ourselves in a pivotal moment in history because of a new, very dangerous innovation from the global central banks that are poised to change everything, and not for the better. Perhaps you've heard of the central bank digital currencies. The CBDCs, as they're called, are going to become the digital version of the dollar, but with technology that allows the Fed and the US government to see every single transaction you do in real time, and even program the money so that it's only usable for the transactions they want you to make. They are dead set on removing all forms of privacy while increasing their control. Consider this quote from Augustin Carstens, the GM of the Bank of International Settlements, which is the central bank of the central banks and one of the most powerful institutions in the world. "We don't know who's using a $100 bill today. The key difference with the CBDC is that the central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. Absolute control on how you use your new CBDC money. They aren't even trying to hide their intentions anymore, are they? They want to fully digitize the dollar so they can more easily control it, while being able to see every transaction you make in real time and have the ability to dramatically increase the amount of money in the market at the push of a button. CBDCs are coming, whether we like them or not. You can't hide from it. But you can take some of your currency, trade it for real money, hard money like gold and silver, before it's too late. Once people realize what they're up to, they'll be making a dash to owning real assets like gold and silver. But then the price will likely be much higher. After all, gold and silver help protect your wealth and purchasing power over time. But when they're really useful is in times of economic collapse and uncertainty. Speaking of economic uncertainty, if you've been paying attention to the issues plaguing the economy, from runaway debt, irresponsible money printing, funding wars around the world while letting social justice warriors, climate activists take control of Congress and business, while Biden and his cronies keep spending money like drunken sailors, then you probably see that the need for buying gold and silver, crisis insurance, has never been more important. And you wouldn't be alone. Central banks around the world, especially China and Russia, have gone on a gold buying spree. Just look at some of these headlines. When nations start stepping up their purchases like this, you want to pay special attention. Globally, everything is lining up for the biggest rise in gold that we've seen in generations. Russia is at war in Ukraine. China may invade Taiwan or it may not. Either way, there is financial uncertainty. Precious metals are the counterbalance to the uncertainty, and the BRICS nations are stockpiling gold to overthrow the dollar's dominance. Bottom line, if the largest central banks and governments are buying gold in record numbers to protect themselves from the dangers of the dollar, it might make sense for you to do it too. Now, before I show you the best way to begin diversifying in gold and silver without confusion or the risk of making a mistake, let me recap what we've covered so far. Time-tested investments. Gold and silver have stood the test of time. People have always seen these metals as valuable because they last forever and they don't lose their shine. Unlike paper money, they can't be made in a factory, so they're rare and special. Protection against inflation. When the government prints money, causing prices to rise, and the buying power of the dollar to go down, gold and silver prices usually go up. This means if you have invested in these metals, you have a safety net against your money's value going down. Stability in uncertain times. We live in a world where the economy can be uncertain. Gold and silver offer a sense of security. They're like a steady rock in the middle of an economic storm. Balancing your savings. Wise investors spread out their investments to reduce risk. Gold and silver can be a good part of this mix. They often hold their value when other investments fall, providing balance to your savings. Beyond jewelry and coins. Gold and silver are not just for making jewelry and coins. They're also important in making electronics and other modern technologies. This keeps them in demand, which is good for those who have invested in them. Limited supply. What makes gold and silver even more valuable is that there's a limited amount of them on Earth. Mining these metals is tough and expensive, which means they can get even more precious as they get harder to find. That's why we call gold and silver hard money, unlike the easy money that the Federal Reserve creates by turning on the printer. The right time to invest. When is the best time to invest in gold and silver? We believe it's a good idea to have some portion of your portfolio allocated to these metals, but in times of crisis, uncertainty, and runaway money printing or inflation, it's absolutely critical. If you feel that the financial system or society is on the verge of collapse or restructuring, then it becomes an insurance against financial collapse. Take a look at the chart of gold for the past 50 years. As you can see, there have been periods of massive growth in the price of gold, especially in times when the Fed is printing money like it did after the Great Financial Crisis and during the 2020 pandemic. So yes, it's true that the price of precious metals can explode in price and make you a lot of money. But most people buy gold and silver to preserve their long-term purchasing power in an asset that allows them to sleep at night, especially in times of potential crisis. And despite all the gains over the past 50 years, the US has still never had a time of actual crisis or collapse, and we hope it never does. But with $35 trillion in government debt, Congress funding the wars around the world, foreign countries attempting to leave the dollar, bank failures happening every month, and runaway entitlement spending, we've never been at a greater risk for crisis than we are right now. And this is where owning gold and silver can be both a lifesaver and a way to greatly grow your wealth. That's why we exist. Here at American Alternative Assets, our mission is to help Americans understand how to add physical gold and silver to their portfolio, as well as how to establish a gold and silver IRA. A lot of Americans will think they're doing the right thing by purchasing a gold or silver ETF. But with ETFs, you don't actually own the gold or silver. You only own shares in a Wall Street fund that can be manipulated and is frankly worthless in times of actual crisis. Owning physical gold and silver changes all of that. And that's where we can help you. For years, we've been helping individual investors diversify their assets into physical gold and silver in both their taxable accounts and in their retirement accounts. Did you even know that it's possible to own gold and silver in a self-directed IRA? This is one of the most effective ways to preserve purchasing power of your retirement account while growing its value over time. And you can buy and sell inside your IRA without paying taxes on the gains each time, and without needing to store the gold or silver in your house where it is subject to theft. Now, it's important to know that not all precious metals are eligible for holding in an IRA. The IRS has specific requirements for each metal, and you can't take physical possession in your home. It needs to be stored somewhere securely. That's why we give our clients the option to store their metals in a federally recognized custodian that offers security measures like 24/7 surveillance, time-locked vaults, and rigorous audits to ensure the safety of your investment. The process to open up a precious metals IRA is simple. 1. Establish a self-directed IRA through a qualified custodian, similar to opening up a new bank account. 2. Fund your account and choose the metals you want to purchase, following IRS-mandated purity requirements. 3. Securely store your metals in a licensed depository. And if you already own a traditional or Roth IRA, rolling some of your funds into a precious metals IRA is also simple, as long as you work with a licensed provider, like American Alternative Assets. Lastly, you'll need to ensure that you choose a reputable dealer for your precious metals. Look for dealers with a solid history and membership in a recognized industry association. Avoid dealers with too good to be true pricing, high-pressure sales tactics, or lack of transparency. Ask the right questions about pricing, buyback terms and commissions to ensure a trustworthy and reliable relationship. Here at American Alternative Assets, we've helped thousands of Americans diversify their portfolio for nearly a decade, and we're rated A+ at the Better Business Bureau. We're proud of our reputation for helping demystify gold and silver investing through proper education and customer service. But every client is different. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. That's why we work with you on a one-to-one basis to develop a plan that makes sense for your personal financial situation and that sets you up for success. Want to learn more? Schedule a call with our team, and we'll walk you through everything you need to know with zero pressure. And we'll take our time to make sure that this is right for you. You've got nothing to lose by calling us and exploring how precious metals can work for you and your family.